At my 11-year-old daughter's funeral, my mother stood beside her coffin and told 93 people that I had caused my own child's death. Then she handed me a document and said, "Sign this, and you're no longer our daughter." I was too broken to fight. I had spent the last 4 days sleeping beside an empty bed, holding a red scarf that still smelled faintly like my daughter's shampoo. Then my late husband's attorney called. I put him on speaker. He said one sentence. My mother dropped the paper. My sister stopped crying. And the pastor who had been calling me a negligent mother suddenly turned white. They thought the video had been deleted. They were wrong, because in a few hours, everyone would see what really happened to my daughter. But before I tell you what was on that recording, you need to know who Sophie Bennett was. Sophie hated being called brave. Whenever someone told her she was brave, she would wrinkle her nose and say, "I'm not brave. I just don't like leaving things unfinished." That was Sophie. She was 11 years old, had a gap between her front teeth, and kept a notebook full of questions nobody else seemed interested in answering. Why did birds fly in formation? Why did people say they loved honesty but get angry when someone told the truth? Why did Grandma always lock the drawer in her study? I should have paid more attention to that last question. Sophie had a red scarf she wore everywhere. It was knitted by my husband, Daniel, before he died. He had been terrible at knitting. The scarf was uneven, too long on one side, and the tassels didn't match. Sophie loved it. "Dad made it," she always said whenever someone complimented it. Daniel had been gone for 2 years when Sophie died. A heart condition took him suddenly on an ordinary Tuesday morning. He had kissed Sophie before leaving for work. He had promised to bring home the chocolate muffins she liked. He never came back. After that, Sophie stopped sleeping through the night. She would come into my room at 2 a.m., climb under the blanket, and whisper, "Mom, are you still here?" I always told her the same thing. Always. I didn't know that 2 years later, I would be standing at her funeral wondering whether I had failed to keep that promise. My sister Claire had organized the funeral. She said she was helping me. Claire was good at helping people. At least she was good at looking like she was helping people. She had nearly 200,000 followers online. She hosted a popular faith and family podcast called The Better Way. She spoke at women's conferences, appeared on morning television, and posted daily videos about forgiveness, family, and trusting God during difficult seasons. People loved Claire. They called her inspirational. They called her genuine. They called her the strongest woman they knew. My mother called her the daughter who had never lost her way. I was the other daughter, the difficult one, the one who had stopped attending Claire's church after Daniel died, the one who questioned things, the one who refused to smile for photographs when she was hurting. Claire said I was angry with God. Maybe I was. But I was also angry at people who used God as an excuse to avoid answering simple questions. Like why my daughter had been left alone near a frozen lake. Like why nobody had called me when Sophie first went missing. Like why Claire's husband, Nathan, had told the police that Sophie had wandered away from the retreat alone. And like why my sister had deleted the live stream she had been recording that afternoon. At the time, I didn't know the answer to any of those questions. I only knew that my daughter was dead. The funeral began at 10 in the morning. I sat in the front row with an empty seat beside me. Sophie's seat. I had asked the funeral director to leave it empty. My mother thought that was strange. "People will notice," she whispered. "I want them to," I said. She stared at me as if I had said something offensive. The coffin was closed. I couldn't bear the thought of seeing Sophie's face again. On top of the coffin, I had placed her red scarf, the one Daniel had knitted, the one she had worn on the last morning I saw her alive. Claire sat across the aisle. She was crying beautifully. There is no other way to describe it. Her tears fell at exactly the right moments. Her head bowed when people looked at her. Her shoulders shook whenever someone approached. She looked like grief had been carefully rehearsed. Nathan stood at the pulpit. He was wearing a black suit. His voice was low and solemn. "Sophie was a light," he said. I stared at the floor, because Sophie had not been a light to him 4 days earlier. She had been a problem that knew something. A problem that had told her best friend Lily, "I'm going to tell Mom everything on Sunday." I didn't know that yet. I would learn it later. At the time, I only knew that something about the funeral felt wrong. Then my mother stood up. She walked to the pulpit holding a cream-colored envelope. I watched her approach. She didn't look at me. She looked at Claire. Claire gave her the smallest nod. My stomach tightened. My mother unfolded a sheet of paper. "Our daughter Mara Bennett has failed in her duty as a mother," she read. The room went silent. I stared at her. She continued, "Her negligence contributed to the death of our beloved Sophie. She has rejected her family, rejected the church, and rejected every attempt to help her." My hands began to shake. My mother looked directly at me. Then she said, "Sign this." She walked down the aisle and placed the document in my lap. I looked at the first line. It was a legal statement declaring that I was voluntarily cutting ties with my parents and surrendering any future claim to family assets. The date at the top was 3 weeks before Sophie died. 3 weeks. My mother had prepared it before the funeral, before the investigation was complete, before anyone knew exactly what had happened. I looked up. "Why did you prepare this before Sophie died?" My mother didn't answer. Claire lowered her eyes. Nathan suddenly became very interested in the floor. Then my phone rang. The sound echoed through the chapel. The caller ID showed Graham Cole, Daniel's estate attorney. I almost ignored it. Then I remembered something Daniel had once told me. If Graham ever calls you unexpectedly, answer. So I did. "Hello?" "Mara," Graham said. "Are you somewhere private?" I looked around the chapel. 93 people are staring at me. "Then put me on speaker." My mother said, "Absolutely not." I pressed the button anyway. Graham's voice filled the chapel. "First, Mara, do not sign that document." My mother froze. Graham continued. "Second, I have a copy of the original live stream from the afternoon Sophie died." Claire stopped crying. Graham paused. Then he said, "Your sister may believe she deleted it. She didn't." Claire's face lost all color. And then Graham added, "The recording shows Sophie trying to speak to Claire 3 separate times before she disappeared." Nobody moved. I looked across the aisle at my sister. For the first time since my daughter's death, Claire looked afraid. But Graham wasn't finished. He said, "Mara, there is something else. Sophie left a message for someone 2 days before she died." My heart stopped. "What message?" Graham's voice became quieter. She said, "If anything happens to me, tell my mom to check the blue box." I looked at Claire. She had stopped breathing, because I knew exactly what blue box Sophie meant. It was the locked box in my sister's house, the one Sophie had asked me about the week before she died, and the one Claire had told me, "Don't ever let Sophie open that." The blue box. I hadn't thought about it in weeks. But the moment Graham said those words, I remembered. It had been sitting on the bottom shelf of Claire's study the Sunday before Sophie died. A small metal box, dark blue, locked with a brass combination dial. Sophie had been standing in front of it when I walked into the room. "What is that?" she had asked. Claire had appeared behind her almost immediately. "Nothing important." Sophie had looked at me. "Mom, Aunt Claire said I can't ever open it." Claire laughed. "Because it's private, sweetheart." But she hadn't sounded amused. She had sounded afraid. At the funeral, my sister was still staring at me. Graham was waiting on the phone. "What is in the box?" he asked. "I don't know." Claire finally spoke. "Mara, this is inappropriate." I looked at her. "My daughter mentioned it before she died." "She was a child." "She said I should check it." Claire stood up. The movement was so sudden that several people in the chapel turned toward her. She was grieving. She was confused. She didn't understand what she saw. What did she see? Claire said nothing. That was the first time I realized something. My sister knew exactly what Sophie had seen. Graham's voice came through the phone. "Mara, listen to me carefully. Do not confront anyone alone. I have already contacted the authorities, and I have secured Daniel's estate documents. There are financial records involved." My stomach tightened. "What kind of financial records?" Graham hesitated. "The kind your husband spent the last year of his life investigating." I stopped breathing. Daniel had never told me he was investigating anything. He had only said that he was worried about people he trusted. I remembered the last serious conversation we had before his death. We had been sitting in the kitchen. He had been staring at his phone. "Sometimes," he had said, "the people who talk the most about doing good are the ones you should watch most carefully." I had laughed. That sounds cynical. He had looked at me. It isn't cynical if you have proof. I had asked what proof. He had changed the subject. I never asked again. Now, 2 years later, I was standing at our daughter's funeral while my sister's face turned white. Graham said, "Mara, there is a second reason I called." What? Daniel created a private trust for Sophie. I closed my eyes. What kind of trust? A protection trust. It was designed to become fully active when Sophie turned 18. My mother suddenly stepped toward me. "Mara, you are not thinking clearly." I looked at her. "Why do you know about my husband's trust?" She froze. Graham answered before she could. "Because your parents attempted to access it last month." The chapel went silent again. My father stood up. "That's a lie." Graham's voice remained calm. "Mr. Bennett, I have the documents." My mother turned toward him. "You told me it was only temporary." My father stared at her. I looked between them. What was temporary? Nobody answered. I felt something inside me change. The grief was still there. The pain was still there. But beneath it, something else had begun to grow. A question. How much had my family known? And how long had they been lying to me? I left the funeral before the service ended. Graham instructed me to meet him at his office. I didn't go alone. My friend Natalie drove me. She had been my closest friend since college and had barely left my side since Sophie's death. On the way, neither of us spoke. Then Natalie said, "Mara, there's something I need to tell you." I looked at her. "What?" She gripped the steering wheel. "Sophie called me 3 days before she died." My heart stopped. "What did she say?" Natalie swallowed. "She asked me if I knew what a charity audit was." I stared at her. "What?" "She said she had found something in your sister's house." "What did she find?" Natalie shook her head. "I don't know. She wouldn't tell me over the phone." "Why not?" "She said someone might be listening." The car suddenly felt too small. I looked out the window. "So, why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't think." She stopped. "Because you didn't think what?" Natalie pulled over. She turned toward me. "She sounded scared, Mara." My entire body went cold. "What exactly did she say?" Natalie took out her phone. "I saved the voice message." She pressed play. Sophie's voice filled the car. "Mom's friend Natalie? It's Sophie. Don't tell Mom I called. I need to ask you something. If a charity gets money for kids, but someone uses the money for something else, is that stealing?" I covered my mouth. The recording continued. "I think I found something. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell Mom. Aunt Claire says grown-up money is complicated." There was a pause. Then Sophie's voice became quieter, but I saw Dad's name. The message ended. I stared at Natalie. "Why didn't you tell me? I tried calling you. You were at the hospital identification center." I closed my eyes. The hospital. The police. The funeral. I had missed it. The message had been sitting on Natalie's phone for 4 days, and my daughter had been carrying a secret alone. Graham's office was waiting for us. He had prepared a stack of documents. The first was a copy of Daniel's will. The second was a trust agreement. The third was a financial report from a foundation Daniel had created before his death. The foundation was called the Daniel Bennett Children's Hope Fund. It had received nearly $1.8 million in donations over 2 years, money meant to provide emergency housing, therapy, and educational support for children who had lost a parent. I looked at the report. Several payments had been made to a company called Crossway Media Consulting. I recognized the name. It belonged to Nathan, Claire's husband. I looked up. Why was the charity paying Nathan? Graham pushed another document toward me. That is the question Daniel was asking before he died. I stared at the numbers. More than $400,000 had gone from the foundation to Nathan's company. The payments were listed as media consulting, but there was no evidence of any work. No invoices, no contracts, nothing. Then Graham handed me one final document. It was a handwritten note. Daniel's handwriting. I knew it immediately. The note said, "Claire knows." I looked at Graham. "What does that mean?" Before he could answer, my phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. It contained only one sentence. "You should have left the blue box alone." I stared at the screen. Natalie leaned toward me. "Who is that?" I didn't answer, because another message appeared. This time, there was a photograph of Sophie, taken 3 days before she died. She was standing beside the blue box, and behind her, reflected faintly in the glass of Claire's study door, was someone else. Someone watching her. I zoomed in. My blood turned cold. It was Nathan. But he wasn't looking at Sophie. He was looking directly at the camera. And beneath the photograph, the unknown sender had written, "Your daughter didn't fall by accident." Your daughter didn't fall by accident. I read the sentence 3 times. Then I looked at the photograph again. Nathan stood behind the glass door of Claire's study. His face was partially hidden by the reflection, but his eyes were unmistakable. He had been watching Sophie. "Who sent this?" Natalie asked. "I don't know." Graham stood behind his desk. "Show me." I handed him the phone. He studied the message, then the photograph. "Don't respond." "Why?" "Because whoever sent this knows something. We need to know what before they realize you have the photograph." I looked at the image again. Sophie was standing beside the blue box. Her hand was resting on the lid. She was smiling. She looked completely unaware that someone was watching her. I zoomed in. There was something on the floor beside her. A small white envelope. I hadn't noticed it before. "What is that?" Graham enlarged the image. The envelope had a handwritten label. D.B. Daniel Bennett. My husband. My daughter had found something connected to her father, and someone had been watching her discover it. I couldn't sit still anymore. "I need to go to Claire's house." Graham immediately shook his head. "No. My daughter's things are there. Then we'll get them legally." "I don't care about legally." I stood up. "My daughter is dead, Graham. Someone sent me a photograph of her being watched by the man whose company received hundreds of thousands of dollars from her father's foundation." He didn't argue, but he did say, "You will not go alone." An hour later, Natalie drove me to Claire's house. The police had already released the property to the family. Claire was there. So was Nathan. When I walked through the front door, Claire looked at me as if I had become a stranger. Maybe I had. The woman who had sat beside her at family dinners was gone. The woman who had believed her was gone. I looked at Nathan. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Where is the blue box?" Claire's expression changed. "Why?" "Sophie told me about it." "No, she didn't." The answer came too quickly. I stared at her. Claire seemed to realize her mistake. Then she said, "Mara, you are grieving. You are looking for someone to blame." I took out my phone. I showed her the photograph. Her face went completely still. Nathan stepped forward. "Where did you get that?" There it was. Not, "What is that?" Not, "I don't know what you're talking about." "Where did you get that?" I looked at him. "You recognize it." He said nothing. Claire turned toward him. "Nathan?" He didn't answer her. I felt the room tilt beneath me. The marriage, the charity, the blue box, Sophie. They were all connected, and my family knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. "Open the box," I said. Claire shook her head. "I don't have to do anything you say." "No." I looked at Nathan. "But you do have to answer questions about the money you received from my husband's foundation." Nathan's face hardened. "Be careful." "Why? Are you going to threaten me too?" Claire suddenly stepped between us. "Stop this." I laughed. It was the first time I had laughed since Sophie died. The sound frightened me. "You stood in front of everyone at my daughter's funeral and called me negligent." Claire's eyes filled with tears. I was angry. "You prepared the document 3 weeks before she died." She said nothing. "Why?" Still nothing. Then Nathan said, "You don't understand the pressure Claire was under." I turned toward him. "My daughter is dead." His jaw tightened. "And you're talking to me about pressure?" For several seconds, nobody moved. Then a sound came from upstairs, a door closing. Natalie looked toward the ceiling. "Is someone else here?" Claire's face changed. I saw it. Fear. Real fear. I ran toward the stairs. "Mara!" Claire shouted. I kept going. The door to Claire's study was open. The blue box was gone. I stopped. The bottom shelf was empty. Someone had taken it. I turned around. Nathan was standing at the bottom of the stairs. Claire was beside him, and behind them, near the front door, stood a young woman I had never seen before. She was holding the blue box. She looked terrified. Claire turned white. "Elena?" The young woman stared at me. "I'm sorry." Nathan moved toward her. "Give me the box." Elena stepped backward. "No." It was the first word she had spoken. Nathan stopped. Claire whispered, "Elena, please." The young woman looked at me. "Are you Mara Bennett?" "Yes." She held the box tightly. "Your husband tried to contact me before he died." My heart stopped. "What?" Elena looked at Nathan. He knew about the money. Nathan's face went pale. He knew the foundation was being used to move money through my company. Claire said, "That's not true." Elena shook her head. "Daniel found the records." I looked at the blue box. "What's inside?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Everything." Nobody spoke. Then she said something that made my knees weaken. "Your daughter found me." I stared at her. "When?" 2 weeks before she died. Elena explained that she had worked as Nathan's assistant at Crossway Media. She had discovered that the charity payments were being transferred through several companies before ending up in accounts connected to Nathan. When she confronted him, he fired her. But before she left, she copied several files. She had planned to give them to Daniel. "Why didn't you?" "Because he died." My hands began shaking. Elena looked at the blue box. "Your husband told me that if anything happened to him, I should give the evidence to you." "Then why didn't you?" She looked at Nathan. "Because he found me." Nathan took a step forward. Elena backed away. "He told me that if I went to the police, he would make sure everyone believed I had stolen the money." Nathan shouted, "You did steal company files." Elena flinched. I looked at him. "You just admitted the files exist." He went silent. Claire turned toward him. "Nathan?" He didn't look at her. I walked toward Elena. "What did Sophie know?" Elena looked at me. "More than she should have." She told me Sophie had found the blue box open one afternoon. Inside, she had seen a flash drive, several printed bank statements, and a letter from Daniel. Sophie had taken a photograph of the documents. Then she had asked Elena what they meant. Elena had told her to talk to her mother. But Sophie was afraid. "Why?" Elena looked down. "Because your sister had already found out that Sophie knew." I felt the room disappear around me. Claire whispered, "No." I turned toward her. "You knew?" I didn't know what she knew, but you knew she had seen something. Claire's silence was an answer. I remembered the phone call, the week before Sophie died. Claire had called her. I had been at the grocery store. When I came home, Sophie had been sitting at the top of the stairs. She had told me nobody important had called. She had lied. My daughter had never lied to me before. Not once. I looked at Claire. "What did you say to her?" Claire began crying. "I told her to stay out of adult matters." "What else?" "I don't remember." "You called her." "I was trying to protect the family." "What did you say?" Claire looked at Nathan, and Nathan looked away. That was when I knew. The unknown sender texted again. My phone buzzed in my hand. I looked down. Ask Claire what happened at the retreat. A second message appeared. Ask her why she deleted the video. Then a third. And ask her who was standing beside the lake when Sophie fell. I looked up. Claire was staring at my phone. Her face had gone completely white. I whispered, "Who was standing beside my daughter?" Claire opened her mouth. But before she could answer, Elena suddenly grabbed my arm. "There's something else in the box." "What?" She looked toward Nathan. "The original video." My heart stopped. "The video of what?" Elena's voice dropped to a whisper. "The video your sister thought she deleted." Then the front door slammed shut. Nathan was gone. The front door slammed shut. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then Elena shouted, "He's gone." I ran toward the door. Nathan's car was already disappearing down the street. I stood on the porch, staring after him. My daughter was dead. My sister had lied. And the man who might know exactly what happened had just run away. I turned back toward the house. "Call the police." Elena nodded, but Claire was standing beside the blue box. She was staring at me. "Mara, please." I looked at her. "Please what?" Her lips trembled. "You don't understand." I almost laughed. "Then explain it." She looked toward the road where Nathan had disappeared. "I was trying to protect you." "From what?" She didn't answer. "From Nathan?" Her eyes filled with tears. "From everything." I stepped closer. "Did you know Sophie was going to tell me?" Claire looked down. That was enough. I felt something inside me crack. "What did she know?" Claire pressed both hands against her face. "I don't know everything. But you knew she was afraid." "She was a child." "She was my child." Claire lowered her hands. She came to me. The room went silent. "When?" "Friday." The Friday before the retreat. The day I had dropped Sophie at Claire's house to spend the afternoon with her cousins. "What did she say?" Claire stared at the floor. "She said she had found something in the study." "The blue box?" Claire nodded. "She asked me what the papers meant." "What did you tell her?" "I told her they were private." "And then?" Claire closed her eyes. "I told her not to tell you. My entire body went cold. Why? Because I didn't want you to panic. I stared at her. You were stealing money from a charity created by my husband. No, your husband was. I didn't know about all of it, but you knew something. Claire said nothing. Elena placed the blue box on the table. It was locked when I found it. I looked at her. How did you open it? Sophie told me the combination. I stared at her. What combination? Elena looked at me. Daniel's birthday. My heart tightened. Of course, Sophie had known that. She had always used her father's birthday for everything. The box opened with a small metallic click. Inside were documents, a flash drive, several bank statements, and a folded piece of paper. I picked it up. The handwriting was Daniel's. I knew it immediately. Mara, if you're reading this, I was right to be worried. My hands began to shake. I unfolded the page. The foundation is being used to move money. I don't yet know how far this goes. Nathan is not acting alone. I stopped reading. Not acting alone. I looked at Claire. She was crying. Who else? She shook her head. I don't know. I held up the paper. Daniel wrote that Nathan wasn't acting alone. Claire whispered. He suspected me. Did he? I don't know. You were his sister-in-law. I loved Daniel. Then why did you let your husband steal from his foundation? Claire looked at me. I didn't know he was stealing. But you knew he was hiding something. She didn't answer. Elena suddenly pointed toward the flash drive. That's what Daniel gave me. I looked at her. You had this? Not this one. A copy. Why didn't you give it to the police? Because I was scared. I understood that. Fear had protected my family for years. Fear had kept Elena silent. Fear had kept Sophie silent. Fear had kept me from asking questions. Until now. I took the flash drive. My phone rang. Graham. I answered immediately. Mara, where are you? Claire's house. Get out. Why? Because Nathan just called my office. My stomach tightened. What did he say? He said you have stolen property. I looked at the blue box. Graham continued. He is claiming the documents inside belong to Crossway Media. I almost laughed. The documents are about my husband's foundation. I know. Then why is he doing this? Because he knows what is on the flash drive. I looked at Elena. She was staring at me. What is on it? Graham was silent. Then he said, I haven't seen the entire contents, but Elena sent me a partial copy earlier today. My heart began beating faster. What did you see? A video. I closed my eyes. The retreat? Yes. Play it. I can't. Why? Because the file is encrypted. I looked at the blue box. Then we need to decrypt it. Graham paused. There's a password. What password? Your daughter knew it. My breath caught. What? The password was written in one of Sophie's notebooks. I looked around the room. Which notebook? Graham said. The red one. I froze. Sophie's red notebook. I had seen it in her bedroom. It was the notebook she used for questions. The one with the birds. The one with the locked drawer. I had left it on her desk. I suddenly remembered something. 3 days before the retreat, Sophie had asked me, Mom, if someone knows something bad, but telling the truth might hurt a lot of people, should they still tell? I had been busy making dinner. I had answered without looking at her. Truth is always better than lies. She had been quiet for a moment. Then she had said, even if the truth ruins a family. I had turned around. She had already walked away. I should have followed her. I should have asked. I should have listened. I didn't. We drove home. I ran upstairs to Sophie's room. Everything was exactly as I had left it. Her bed, her stuffed animals, her school books. The red notebook was on her desk. I picked it up. The first pages were filled with drawings, then questions. Why do people lie when they say they love you? Can someone be good and still do bad things? What happens when adults are afraid? I turned the page. Near the back, Sophie had written a series of numbers. Then beneath them, the thing Mom says is always better. I entered the numbers into the laptop. The encrypted file opened. There was one video, recorded on the afternoon of the retreat. I pressed play. The screen showed a wide, grassy field. A group of children were gathered near a wooden shelter. The camera was pointed toward the lake. Then Sophie appeared. She was wearing her red scarf. She was walking quickly. She looked upset. I turned up the volume. Mom? Her voice. I covered my mouth. She wasn't talking to the camera. She was talking to someone standing off screen. I heard another voice. Claire, what are you doing here? Sophie said. I need to talk to you. Claire answered, not now. I know about the money. The video suddenly shook. Claire stepped into view. Her face was furious. Who told you? Sophie took a step backward. I saw the papers. You don't understand what they mean. Mom needs to know. Claire looked toward the camera, then back at Sophie. Your mother cannot handle this right now. She has to know. Claire's voice changed. It became cold. If you tell her, everything falls apart. Sophie stared at her. Maybe it should. I stopped breathing. Claire looked toward the lake. Then she said, Give me the flash drive. Sophie shook her head. No. Claire took a step toward her. The video ended. I stared at the black screen. For several seconds, I couldn't move. Then Graham said quietly, Mara, there's more. I looked at him through the video call. What? He hesitated. The recording has a second file. He opened it. This one was only 17 seconds long. The camera was pointed at the lake. There was no sound except wind. Then Sophie appeared at the edge of the frame. She was running. Behind her was Claire. And behind Claire, Nathan. Sophie turned. She slipped. The video shook violently. Then the camera fell. The final image showed the ground. The final sound was my daughter's voice. Mom! The recording ended. I stared at the screen. Claire had told everyone Sophie wandered away alone. She had told everyone she hadn't seen her. But the video proved she was there. And Nathan was there too. Then Graham said, Mara, the police just found Nathan's car. Where? At the airport. My heart stopped. He's trying to leave? No. Graham's voice became grim. They found something in the trunk. I waited. He said, Your daughter's red scarf. I couldn't speak. The scarf had been in my hands when I left the funeral. I had placed it on Sophie's coffin. I had watched the funeral director take it away. Or at least, I thought I had. That's impossible, I whispered. Graham's voice was calm. The police found it in the trunk of Nathan's car. I looked at Claire. She had gone completely still. What did he do with it? We don't know yet. Where is Nathan? The airport police detained him before he could board a flight. I closed my eyes. For 4 days, I had believed my daughter had died wearing that scarf, but it had been in Nathan's car. Why? The police arrived at Claire's house 20 minutes later. They took the blue box, the flash drive, Sophie's red notebook, and the photograph sent from the unknown number. Then they asked Claire questions. She cried. She denied everything. She said she had never threatened Sophie. She said she had never known about the money. She said she had been at the retreat to help children. But the video told a different story. And so did the financial records. The investigation lasted 6 weeks. During those 6 weeks, I learned things about my family that I wish I had never known. Nathan had created 6 different companies. Money from Daniel's foundation had passed through all of them. More than $600,000 had disappeared. Some of it had gone toward Nathan's personal debts. Some had paid for the house. Some had funded Claire's podcast. The expensive studio, the conferences, the advertising, the perfect life my sister displayed online. The charity money had paid for all of it. Claire claimed she had not known the full amount, but investigators found emails. Messages between her and Nathan. One of them was sent 2 months before Sophie died. Nathan had written, "She is asking questions." Claire had replied, "Then make sure she stops." The investigators asked her what she meant. She said she was talking about me, but the timing was wrong. Sophie had been asking questions, and the video showed Claire confronting her. The case against Nathan became stronger every week. He was charged with financial crimes, fraud, embezzlement, and obstruction. But the charge that changed everything came from the video. The investigators discovered something I hadn't noticed. The camera that recorded the video had not been placed there by Sophie. It belonged to a small security system installed near the retreat property. The camera had been hidden behind a birdhouse. It had captured the entire scene, not just the 17-second clip, the full recording, 38 minutes. And there was something else. At 4:17 p.m., after the camera had fallen, the audio continued. I listened to that part once. Only once. I will never listen to it again. Nathan's voice said, "Claire, what did you do?" Claire answered, "She saw everything." Nathan said, "Then take the drive." Claire said, "She won't give it to me." There was a long silence. Then Nathan said, "Get her away from here." Claire whispered, "How?" The recording ended shortly afterward. The police determined that Sophie had slipped near the edge of the lake. She had been injured, but she was alive. The evidence suggested that Claire and Nathan had left her there while they searched for the flash drive. By the time someone finally noticed she was missing, it was too late. That was the truth. They hadn't necessarily planned for my daughter to die, but they had known she was in danger, and they had walked away. Then they lied. They blamed me. They tried to destroy me. And at my daughter's funeral, my own mother had tried to make me sign away my family. The same mother who had known about the missing money. The same mother whose signature appeared on a loan document connected to Nathan's company. My parents had borrowed $180,000 against their home to help Claire and Nathan expand the podcast. They had been told the money would be repaid within 6 months. It never was. When the foundation investigation began, they realized they could lose everything. That was why the disownment document had been prepared. They wanted to make me look unstable. They wanted to separate me from the family. They wanted to make sure I couldn't challenge the financial records. My mother had not been grieving for Sophie. Not really. She had been protecting the family. The family that had abandoned me. The family that had blamed me. The family that had watched my daughter walk away from them and done nothing. The trial began 8 months later. I didn't attend every hearing. I couldn't. But I attended the day Nathan testified. He looked different. No expensive suit. No confident smile. No perfect pastor's voice. He looked like a man who had finally discovered that consequences were real. His attorney tried to blame Claire. Claire's attorney tried to blame Nathan. Nathan said Claire had known everything. Claire said Nathan had manipulated her. My mother said she had only signed the document because she was emotionally overwhelmed. My father said he had never understood the financial arrangements. Everyone had an explanation. Everyone had an excuse. But the recordings remained. The emails remained, the bank records remained, and the video remained. The truth doesn't always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it arrives as a timestamp, a bank statement, a deleted email, a file someone forgot to erase. That is what destroyed them. Not my anger, not my revenge. Evidence. Nathan was convicted. Claire accepted a plea agreement that included restitution and a prison sentence. She lost her podcast, her sponsors, her platform, her home, her reputation. My mother and father lost their house. They had to sell it to repay part of the money they had borrowed. My father closed his business, the same business he had owned for 27 years. My mother sent me letters. I never opened them. Claire sent me one too. I opened that one. It contained only 3 sentences. I should have answered her when she called my name. I read it once. Then I put it in a drawer. I don't know if that was forgiveness. I don't think it was. Forgiveness is a word people use when they want the story to end neatly. My story did not end neatly. I still miss Sophie. I miss her questions. I miss her red scarf. I miss the way she used to sleep with one foot outside the blanket. I miss hearing her voice in the hallway. Some mornings, I still turn toward her bedroom. Then I remember. But something good came from the money they tried to steal. After the investigation ended, I received the remaining funds from Daniel's trust. I used them to create a foundation. It was called Sophie's Questions. We provide financial assistance and legal support to children who lose a parent and have no one willing to listen to them. The first child we helped was a 9-year-old boy named Caleb. His father had died. His mother was struggling to keep their home. Caleb had a notebook full of questions. When I saw it, I almost cried. One afternoon, he asked me, "Does it get better?" I looked at him. I thought about Sophie. Then I said, "Not exactly." He looked confused. I continued, "But you learn how to carry it." He nodded. I gave him a red scarf. It wasn't Sophie's. I could never give that away. It was new. I had knitted it myself. It was uneven. The tassels didn't match. I was terrible at knitting. Caleb smiled. "Did you make this?" "Yes." "You're not very good." I laughed. For the first time in a long time, I really laughed. "No," I said, "I'm not." He wrapped the scarf around his neck. Then he asked me another question. "Why do adults lie?" I looked at him, and I thought of my mother, my sister, Nathan, the funeral, the blue box, the video, my daughter's final unanswered question. I said sometimes because they're afraid of what the truth will cost them. Caleb thought about that. Then he said, "Does the truth always win?" I looked out the window. No. Then I looked back at him, but it has a much better chance when someone refuses to let it disappear. That night, I went home. I opened the drawer where I had kept Claire's letter. I read the sentence again. I should have answered her when she called my name. I folded the letter. I put it back. Then I walked upstairs. The house was quiet. For a moment, I stood outside Sophie's room. I still couldn't go inside every day. But that night, I did. Her red notebook was on the shelf. I opened it to the final page. Underneath all the questions, Sophie had written one sentence. Mom says the truth is always better than lies. I touched the words. Then I whispered, "You were right, baby." And for the first time since she died, I didn't feel like I was speaking into an empty room, because the truth had finally been heard. Not by my mother, not by my sister, not by the church that had judged me. By everyone. And when the room emptied, when my family disappeared, when the people who had promised to love me chose themselves instead, I finally understood something Sophie had known before I did. Family is not the people who share your blood. Family is the person who answers when you call, the person who believes you when everyone else says you're lying, the person who stays. And sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destroying the people who hurt you, it's surviving them. It's telling the truth and building a life so full of meaning that they no longer have any place in it. Sophie was 11 years old. She had questions. I wish I had listened sooner, but I listen now, every day.